Hello and welcome back to the Not the Old Firm YouTube channel. My name is Ben Banks. Euro 2020 is finished. Scotland are out, but not to worry. Plenty of domestic action to come ahead of the 2021-2022 season. Got the Premier Sports Cup matches starting in the next few weeks, and teams are already back in pre-season training. Well, most of them anyway. A few still to return. But today's exclusive interviews, one I really enjoyed recording with Hibs Sporting Director Graeme Mathie. Thank him for his time. Obviously, a busy man at the moment in the transfer market with Hibs and different bits and bobs as they prepare for their campaign in the inaugural UEFA Europa Conference League. They've got pre-season training starting from next week. They've got a training camp in England as well as a host of clubs looking for their best talent, and they're looking to take a couple from other clubs as well. So really extensive chat with Graeme, speaking all things on the transfer front, what his role as sporting director has entailed during the COVID-19 pandemic, some of the initiatives he's working on behind the scenes that I think are really interesting. New strategic partnerships Hibs recently announced, one with civil service strollers, but also perhaps more famously in the last month or so, they also announced with English Premier League side Brighton. So plenty of interesting stuff over the sort of 30, I think it's 37 minutes or so was speaking to Graeme. So thanks again to him for his time. We hope you do enjoy. Hopefully be able to bring in more content sort of like this with people in the thick of it at clubs just now, one to one. So if you do enjoy this type of stuff, do remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, I'll get started. As I was saying before, hit record and things like that. Probably because of the way the cup final was, you're going away on that sort of sour note, if you will, with the defeat and things like that. But overall, 2020, 21's I think probably when you look back at it as a whole, a really good season for Hibs.
Yeah, I think people probably would forget how long it's been since Hibs finished third in the league, and that's tough to do. So the guys showed an incredible consistency over the year and found different ways to win games. I think that's whenever we talk to players about coming to Scotland, that's probably one of the selling points. Is it's a tough league, but it's a league that gives you loads of different experiences. And certainly for a club like Hibs, every game's totally different. And Jack and the guys found and the players found different ways to win over the course of the season. And in some ways, the cups were obviously disappointing because we thought there was an opportunity there to go and win trophies. But again, the club's history hasn't really been laden with doing that. But at the same time, that there was that tinge of disappointment. But that's probably part of my job, is to look back and reflect over progress. And I think it's undoubtedly we've seen huge progress over the last sort of 12, 18 months, and hopefully we can continue that going forward as well.
Okay, I can mind being at Jack's first game, the Mull game at home, and sort of thinking that I think what was it, ninth or something Hibs were at that time, and you're sort of thinking he's got a bit of a job in his hands after sort of coming out of a real pressure cooker situation at Sunderland a month later. And I know obviously Hibs as a club will strive for third place every season and semi-finals and things like that, but he's pretty much got. I mean, did you expect to be this far along the road with him 18 months on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could be quite clear when we put forward a shortlist to ultimately the board and the owner about manager. We were pretty clear about the 4 or 5 names that we had on that shortlist, and it was things like, can we find a coach that is able to win games? So Jack's win record at all the clubs he's been at has been good, and I think that was something that we could be quite clear about. We looked at things like how many times were they able to turn losing situations into winning situations, and hopefully winning situations to keep getting positive results in games. So again, Jack's career showed that over all the clubs he'd been at as well. So there was other bits in there. I mean, I guess we can chat about that later. But in terms of the on-field stuff, it's not surprising that he's been able to get a group together to go and win games, because that's what he showed an ability to do at all the clubs he's been at. But you're right. I mean, it is and again, I will say it, I think we probably felt disappointed to be where we were in the league at that time, because number of games that we watched in the first half of that season, we were well in control up until maybe 60, 70 minutes, and then ended up turning a win into a draw, or even worse, a loss. So it does show you a lot in football how fine the lines can be, because there was certain results there where we were comfortable in games and ended up not picking up 3 points. And the difference between picking up 3 points and one, and it sounds very obvious, but when you put 2 or 3 of them together, can be the difference in being ninth to in the top 4. But probably the most impressive bit about last year, it was Hibs went outside the top 4 all year. That's an achievement in itself. It wasn't that we made a late run or a blistering start and then held on. We were there all season, and that takes a bit of doing.
Yeah, I think that was probably the thing that stuck out to me. I know, without focusing too much on other teams, there's a lot of talk when Aberdeen when Derek McInnes was leaving there and their form and things like that. I think a lot of people tipped Mull after their season to be third, but Hibs, even though we're tipped for that point in the league, they were just steadily going along their business throughout the season. Probably didn't have as many headlines, if you will, throughout, but that's obviously, it's not a bad thing, is it?
No, sometimes it works out that way, that's for sure. But I mean, I look at Aberdeen. Tended to have a period, and sometimes it would be at the start of a season where they maybe didn't start overly well, but then just came, and found a level of consistency and won games and got points. And sometimes, like all good teams, when you're up at that end of the league, if you're not playing well for a period, still grinding out results and getting wins. And for their record over the last decade to be in that I'm not even going to say the top four, to be second, third, and fourth, over that time, that's ultimately what we want Hibs to be. Doing it for one season is brilliant, and we were all delighted to do it, but it's about being able to do it consistently. That's the next challenge that we've got. So hard work starts again on Monday for the players to go in and try and emulate that.
No, the hard work starts for the players on Monday. I can imagine you've been working, you've probably had about 3 days off or something.
Well, no, not quite as many as that, unfortunately, but no, that's just the nature at this time of year. So, I mean, it's funny how a lot of agencies speak to say the market's not really started yet, but I don't know. It doesn't feel that way for me, I must admit.
No, I mean, I was reading some of the stuff down south this morning, and obviously John McGinn's been linked with £50 million moves and things like that. And I mean, you must be looking at that and thinking, well, if that goes off, then I can buy and sell a new house, half the land round HTC, different things like that. But
no, I'm afraid I've not got one of those contracts that rewards me in that way. But no, I must admit, every time there's a link, I send it to his agent with the praying hands, saying, "Is there any chance this summer could be the time we get a bit of a sell on?" So he always comes back with the laughing emojis and doesn't tell me too much. So I don't know how much is in that or not. But I mean, fair play to John. I think you even see in the Euros. I mean, he's gone and played against some of the best players in the league again, and shown and done well. So it's no surprise he's been linked with these type of moves. And I mean, I know obviously we had Stephen and Paul here last year, but Paul's still here, and they speak about how affectionate he is about Aston Villa and how big a club it is. So it can probably only be one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country that John could feasibly leave Aston Villa to go and join. So when I saw the Liverpool link, I thought, well, that's one that could be quite interesting. So, and if it goes for the numbers quoted, I've already done my calculations to see how much Hibs are getting out of that. So that was a relatively big calculator that they did, that's for sure.
Good stuff, and you can buy a gold-plated one as well after
that. That's right.
In terms of folk at the Euros, I mean, I know he didn't play as many minutes as John, but good for Hibs to have Kevin there, obviously, and actually getting on the park for some of the time as well.
No, for sure, and I think that's part of the the conversation we had with Kevin before he joined. Can you do that? Can you actually come here, play well in the Premier League, get a cap for Scotland, and particularly in a season where the Euros is on? And again, there's a lesson in there, I think, for a lot of young players as well. I mean, in January, Kevin was obviously disappointed not to move. That was pretty public, and didn't play for maybe 4 or 5 games after that. But when he got back in, absolutely took his chance, found a level of consistency, significantly contributed to the end of the season, gets his opportunity in the Scotland squad, and in his first sort of, when he played against Holland, scores a goal that actually gets him on the pitch for 3 games in the Euros. So, and we all hope that's the start of his international career. It was a similar story to John, but we also talk about, Jamie McLaren joined us, an Australian international from not playing at all in Germany, ended up going to a World Cup. Martin Boyle's played now in major tournaments with Australia. So that's part of what we want to be, is actually helping to give young players a good platform to go and push on and get international recognition. So it was great for Kevin, brilliant to see him coming on in all the games. And, I don't mind telling you, I was keeping my fingers crossed he might have got an opportunity and stuck one in the back of the net. But no, it's the start of his international career, and he's certainly proved he can go and operate at that level, which is great for him.
Okay, I know, obviously, don't know if, I'm assuming, well, it might not be made public, I don't know, but whether Jackson or not is coming back to Hibs for next season. But obviously he's been away with Martin Boyle away in Australia, and Kevin's been away in Scotland. I can't imagine they'll be back at HTC on Monday, but good for them that they'll maybe be able to have a couple of months rest. You've not got, Dumbarton away and things like that to negotiate in the Premier Sports Cup, I think it's called.
Yeah, that's right. No, exactly. So we're away a training camp a week on Sunday, so the guys will probably join back up for us for there. So there's been a few internationals. Obviously, Alex Gogic was away. His season was kind of prolonged as well with games with Cyprus. So there'll be a few that might miss a few days next week, and then he'll be back with us the following week. So it'll be good for them.
Good stuff. Obviously, European draws been made in the time that they've been off. We did I went to Mull's trip to Coleraine last year.
Yeah.
It was on the green list and things like that. It was like nice and easy, and I seen Tuppy was on the green list. I was like, let's see how easy this is to negotiate. No,
not at all.
Of nowhere.
Not at all.
I can imagine that's been a nice logistical nightmare for you to deal with in terms of getting planes and social distancing on the planes and different things like that.
Yeah, I mean, we're quite lucky. So we've got, it's the last time we travelled in Europe, it was a group called Concilium Sports that did all our kind of travel and logistics, and they were great. And some of the challenges we had that time, I mean, there's a couple of chapters in a book, I think, there, particularly a trip to Greece where an aircraft and a hotel was cancelled within hours of each other. There was a wee bit of kind of wondering whether there was something else behind that, those decisions. But no, they were great. So they were away trying to source aeroplanes, etc. And I think by the time I phoned them, the draw was, I think, something about 1 o'clock, and I get down to phone them at back of 3, and they'd already sorted a plane that was ready to go and take us to either location, and they were starting to do all the logistical looks into. I mean, we were lucky there because obviously there's a couple of Scottish teams have played in Gibraltar over the last few years, so we were able to pick their brains a wee bit on the logistics there. And our physio Nathan Ring, head of medicine, was also the physio with England under 21s, so they've played in Andorra recently. So again, he's put us in touch with people there. So ordinarily you'd send people over to take a wee look at places, and I dare say I don't think there would have been a lack of volunteers to go to either Gibraltar or Andorra at this time of year and get a bit of sunshine, but just with the way COVID restrictions are, it's not possible. So we'll rely on these good contacts, and at least they'll be able to help us with the logistical stuff, which is good.
At least you've got that, potentially get a mega bus and a 3-hour flight for London Gatwick to look forward to.
Exactly, absolutely.
but no, I can. With this new Conference League, it's obviously streamlined the Europa League a bit, and St Johnstone are in that. But with the Conference League, there's perhaps more of a chance for you guys in Aberdeen as well to be playing beyond sort of the usual summer months where you get to the playoff round and you get a pretty big team that you just can't compete with.
I must admit, when you look at some of the names in there, and obviously that there's potentially people who are involved in the Champions League who can come down into the Conference League. So I'm not necessarily thinking that this qualification round is going to be much easier than normal. But I mean, you just hope you get a good draw. It's interesting. There was a tie, wasn't there, a Welsh team against another Irish team, and for the same reason you mentioned, I think we were kind of hoping that might have been the one that we would have got in the second qualifying round. But no, it's new experiences, and again, you know, speaking to a lot of the boys that we recruited even 2 years ago, that's what we're saying. Come to Hibs and we'll try and, you know, our aim is to qualify for Europe every year, and you'll get these experiences of going and playing in different competitions. And, you know, there's a general excitement because there's a lot of the guys in our squad that wouldn't have experienced these things before. So, you know, I'm personally delighted that it's 2 locations that got a wee bit of sunshine, so we could at least see that yellow ball in the sky for a period of time over the summer. But no, you know, we were here last time. Hibs had the kind of longest run I think they'd had in Europe in many years, going through 3 rounds and nearly getting to the playoffs. So, you know, we start a round ahead this time, so hopefully we can do it and get through to that final round and get group stage football, because that is a game changer for any Scottish club. You know, to play in European group stage competition financially is an absolute game changer. So it would be great to do it, and be good to have some nights at Easter Road, hopefully with a full house by that stage, and the supporters in to see it as well.
You also get that friendly against Arsenal as well. It's a really bizarre summer because you're used to teams like Arsenal. I know West Ham are playing like Dundee and things like that. These teams are always going to like Hong Kong and America and things like that to play Dallas Cowboys and things like that. And Arteta's having to bring them to Leith, and Moyes is bringing them to Dens Park and things like that. But it has probably changed your plans well, because I can imagine you'll probably need to stay in the UK for camps and things like that when you maybe went to Tenerife or whatever clubs go these days.
Yeah, I mean that was probably one of the harder bits in the summer as well, was actually trying to organise this camp, because you've got the Euros, so a lot of the venues are just booked out until the end of that, and then you've got every club basically in Britain trying to book a domestic training in England. So that would be good. We were offered Portugal just after the cup final when it was on the green list, and it was a wee bit of a temptation to say, right, you know, that the price was great, you know, we know the facilities and the location, everything would be really good, but there's always just this gamble that something happens, or, you know, you need a PCR test going there, so somebody registers a positive test and then you're knocking out 2 or 3 of the squad and missing European games and things. So all the rest just didn't really make sense. So we're staying domestic this year, but yeah, it was a wee bit of a challenge to kind of get all that together, but we got there. So hopefully be a good start to the season for the guys.
Yeah, good stuff. One of the things announced during the off season as well is another strategic partnerships. You've got more than I'm having hot dinners at the minute. Stenhousemuir won the Charleston Battery as well, and then Brighton. Reading sort of their CEO's quotes, they sort of said that sometimes they're more hassle than what they're actually worth for some clubs at that level.
Yeah.
But I think he also said as well that the two clubs are quite a good fit for each other in terms of the different things you can do.
No, sure. I must admit, I've kind of pitched this notion of a strategic partnership with clubs, particularly in England, for years. And I've always said that, if my career ever takes me down south, it would be the first thing I'd look to do. Mainly because I'm so passionate about the Scottish market and I see huge value in it. And I think it's a no-brainer for clubs to try and look at that. But essentially, I think the thing I like about, the conversations that we have with Brighton and Stenhousemuir is, I think we see each other as part of each other's pathway. So rather than every loan move or every transfer being a transaction, it can start to become a conversation. We're having one at the minute where, the club are saying, well, look, we've got a player who's played at a good level and he's experienced this style of football, but he needs to learn how to deal with this, different challenges that he might get in Scotland. Now, we look at the player and think, actually, yeah, we think he could come here and play. So it's not that we're taking a gamble or we're taking somebody who we're not sure if they're good enough, but we're taking somebody, putting them in an environment where we can potentially help to develop them and get the benefit of their skills in our league. And that hopefully helps to create a better rounded player that, again, I would love to be involved in a partnership that says, well, we'll work with players who can go and play in the English Premier League. That's ultimately the aim. And then for us, we've got young players in here now. We always showed them a kind of called it a yellow brick road kind of thing. So it's basically saying when you sign your first professional contract at 16, how can you get yourself to the English Premier League, right? So what's all the steps that might be involved in it? And it's almost trying to, I suppose, get away from this idea where everybody thinks as soon as you sign at 16, you should be playing in the first team at 16 and a half, and then so by the time you're 17, there'll be loads of different building blocks to get there, and they're all different for each player. So Ryan Porteous come in at 16, goes out on loan to League Two at 16, plays a full season at centre back, and is in our first team at 17, 18. That's his story. Josh Doig comes in, plays, in League Two very briefly, and then goes into our first team at 18 as well. But now what we're able to say is, look, there's a partnership now that says the first rung, and we're hopefully going to tie up one over the next 24, 48 hours again, but for even lower. But there's a rung in the ladder, Lowland League, League Two. There's Charleston Battery now somewhere in the middle, which might give you a different type of footballing experience. The Hibs first team is clearly a name that you want to get to. And now we can stick a badge on it and say the English Premier League could be Brighton. There's a club that really values bringing through young players, wants to expand their scout network here, happy to work with us on players. And, they've taken Murray Johnson down to train, give us really good feedback. It wasn't so much about him going down there on trial where they were going to turn around and say, we want to take him from you. It was, here's what we think he's good at. Here's a couple of areas that he might need to develop in order to actually progress at our club or be in the English Premier League. And then we'll keep in touch and say, well, here's the type of development plan we've got for him. And I said, who knows, hopefully Murray gets into the first team in the next few years and that is his final destination as English Premier League as a first team goalkeeper. That'd be great. So
Brighton have done that. I think they had Jamie Hamilton. I know Brian Rice knows a couple of the guys down there. They had him on trial last year, but Murray's a weird one. You always hear his name getting bandied about and sort of. So I did stuff with Youth Football Scotland before, sort of going into journalism. So watched a lot of like Hibs under 13s and 14s. So it's weird to see these guys now that watched maybe 3 or 4 years ago being linked to different. But when you're used to watching them doing the baccalaureum in front of like their mums and dads.
Absolutely, that is, and I guess that's going to become more popular now for English clubs with Brexit because they can't sign 16 and 17-year-olds out with the UK. So this market is going to become more popular, and I guess it can be a challenging conversation because there is big clubs now starting to talk about some of our young players. But I always kind of would say to parents, well, what is it you're going for? If you want to go and become a youth player somewhere, fine. I get the attraction. It's a sexy badge and all the rest of it. But come on, let's have a wee bit about us and back ourselves to make them a very good first team player. Because that's the point you change your life. You don't change your life by being a youth player in England. You don't. And actually, the numbers would suggest for all the young players that have been down there, I'll say it, Billy Gilmour's probably the only one who's really made it. There's others who are going to have reasonable careers, but probably not any more than what they would have done by staying in Scotland and getting into a first team up here. The ones that have really made it have played up here at a first team level and then gone down and gone down as a first team player.
Yeah, and this will be out on Sunday probably. Are you able to? We'll obviously not put it out before. new partnership is, but who is by the time people watch this, it'll be probably announced. So
yeah, civil service strollers we're going to partner with, so they've been great with our young players. Gary Jardin's the manager there, so he was the first person to take Brian Porteous, put him in the Football League at sort of 17 as a centre back, and he's taken now probably about 12 of our young players between Edinburgh City and civil service. Every single one of them have played. He took a 16-year-old striker, Connor Young, last year and gave him, basically 50% of the match minutes in the Lowland League, which is brilliant. No issues at all with playing them. Really keen to actually now come back this year, and he's got footage of all the under-18 games. He's watched them, and he's now identified another 2 or 3 that he might consider for this year. So, for us, it's perfect. And that link now, so of last year's 4 players that we sent to Stenhousemuir, 3 of them had been on loan at civil service the year before. So, for me, that's what we should be trying to do in terms of bridging that gap between the academy and first team, and hopefully these partnerships will start to bear fruit over the next few years.
Yeah, so that's 4 now. I mean, I don't know if you can fit any more in. I mean, that's going to be a pretty long badge. Hibernian Football Club in association with Civil Service Strollers, Charles.
Exactly, that's right. I know.
But no, it's good. I think in terms of the young, there's obviously been a lot of talk about Colts and things like that this summer. But I don't know. I'm not completely against Colts, but I also think as well, if you're putting a young player in an environment with 30-year-olds and that type of player, that's a different type of development altogether.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think the debate's really interesting. I must admit, I don't really think we've had it yet. I think as soon as you mention that word, B team or Colts, it's almost a toxic brand, and people clam up and say we shouldn't do it. But again, we talked about it. I don't mind telling you, we talked about it about 3 years ago. So George Craig was in this kind of role, head of football operations, and we looked at working with in fact, there was a team that kind of got disbanded from the Lowland League, and we were saying, look, can we go in and take their registration, put our youth team in there essentially, and work them through? But at that time, there wasn't a squad that was actually suitable to play at that level. So I think it probably was back to the Porty season. Ollie Shaw, I'm pretty sure, had just had a loan at League One with Stenhousemuir. So you think, well, why would you take a player who's played in League One, put him back into the Lowland League? That doesn't really make sense. So it's trying to find, that one team would be the right environment for probably 16, 18 players. Because you're right, some of them are far better playing against men, in a changing room, having to go and find their feet and have the social skills to integrate themselves into a men's changing room. That's a skill that you probably don't get by playing in it as a Colt team. But no, there is a great debate there, I must admit, and there isn't probably a right answer either. I think there's probably different environments for different young players. But no, you're right, it's become a totally toxic brand at the minute, unfortunately, which is a shame, because I'm desperate to see young players develop in this country, and really passionate about the kind of value that we can get in our young players as well. So anything that we can do, and any conversations that we can have on that, I think are important.
Spoke a wee bit about the English interest there, and I mean, I know personally that Leeds United are out to sweep up every Scottish talent under the sun, it would seem. There's loads of other ones as well, and loads of big names, which I think is good for the development of Scottish football. But as you touched on a wee bit there, perhaps not surprising to see it sort of beginning to crop up a bit more than perhaps it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, listen, it's inevitable, and I don't think we can shy away from that. And I've sort of agreed, Murray's one, Ethan's another when they came in, and there's others now the same, that we're now starting to say to them, the relationship with Brighton makes it different. Look, you could get an opportunity to go and train with English Premier League, so that's part of the agreement, that we would send a few players down there every year, they would send some up here, and not necessarily because we want to sign them, just to give them experiences and opportunities to train. And that bit's important, because when Ethan and Murray go down, we're not sending them down, on the basis that they're on trial and somebody says they're good enough or not good enough, and then we fight over a transfer fee. Send them down to experience something different, different training, different match experiences, different environments, because we want them to stay here and develop. And I guess, of course, there's been a couple of conversations with one or two where people will say, well, we really like them, and here's how much we think they would be worth in the market. I find that difficult, because see, if a player was from Sweden or Belgium or Portugal or any other country in the world, you would probably stick another 0 in there and then start the conversation. So why is it because they're from Scotland you want to try and undervalue our talent so much? Because actually our players have proved, when they do go through and get to, they can compete at the top level. So that is the one bit in all the conversations that gets me annoyed, that how much people undervalue our talent here. And I must admit, I'm probably, got a wee bit between my teeth now to try and do something about it, because the only way we can do something about it is to say no. When people come in and mess about with some of the figures are talking. Just say no. If that's what you think the players are worth, then fine. We'll keep them and we'll develop them further. We'll get them in our first team, and then we'll try and create the value in them that way. So it's inevitable the interest's going to be there, and I'm absolutely more than happy to have conversations with people. But at the same time, I'm really keen to make sure that we get the value for our young players, because every other country in the world seems to be able to do it, and I think it's about time Scotland did as well.
Yeah. I think as well, when people see reports like, I don't know, like Ethan, I think was it Leeds and Manchester United are taking him on trial, I think automatically people assume, oh, that's him signed for Man United, or that's him signed for United, when it's probably not that. It is just the fact he's going down there for a week. I think, who is it at Dundee United? Can't mind the boy. 16-year-old centre backs sort of on similar, going down there for trials and things like that. But it's not like he's signing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it would be wrong for me to say no when these requests come in. The interesting one with Ethan was he gets on the bench against Rangers at Ibrox, and I'm inundated on a Monday with calls from a number of different clubs wanting him on trial. And I'm not trying to be difficult in the conversations, but I genuinely want to know, what is it you like about him? And most of them couldn't tell me what he looked like. Because there's a 16-year-old on the bench for Hibs in the Scottish Premier League against Rangers at Ibrox, suddenly there's this clamour to have him down and take a look. Seems like if you want to actually tell me what you like about him, give me your assessment of him, I'm absolutely more than happy to give you, my opinion and see whether they're aligned or not. But if you're just phoning up because you've read in the newspaper that a 16-year-old's been on the bench, come on, I think we need to do a wee bit better than that. Waste of everybody's time.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there is a lot of that it's just, I don't know, because you don't really see 16-year-olds and that on the bench like English, and I know there's a difference between Premier League level, Scottish Premiership level, but they see 16-year-old, or Leo Hjelde was one last season that got a lot of plaudits because he was playing games, and all of a sudden 12 of the 20 clubs down there want him and things like that. There is just a massive clamour as soon as anything under 18 happens up here. It's a bit mental.
Yeah, no, and I do get it, and I suppose there was a comment. I feel sorry, actually, Leanne was quoted, I think, at one point talking about Ollie Shaw being one of the best strikers in Europe for his age. That was it. But actually, I tell you exactly where that came from. It was a company we were working with at the time that did a lot of data, and they actually said statistically he was one of the best strikers in Europe for his age group at that time. So there was a period in time where it was like, it wasn't quite goals per minute. There was something a wee bit more structured than that about it, but they did say statistically he was excellent, and for his age, and that's I suppose where a lot of these clubs will look at it. They'll have access to these systems and be able to identify very quickly young players who are either playing games or being part of match day squads. And again, I mean, we're a little bit the same. I would always prioritise a CV of a young player who's played against men rather than somebody who's just played youth football or played in the under-23s, because it's a different environment. And if people can survive, socially in that environment and on the pitch and be brave enough to go and take the ball and brave enough to play, then you would like to think you can process that a little bit further. So I get it, but I would always like to think before somebody wants to take somebody down in trial and assess them, that they know something about them. What colour their hair is, or whether they're tall or small or quick or slow or what, just something. And in that instance with Ethan, there was a few conversations I had that became pretty clear they had no clue anything about him at all. They just saw his name in a team sheet and wanted to take a look.
Obviously, it's not just them. It's not just the youngsters that are bubbling beneath the surface. Josh Doig. I've got a wee checklist here of just all the different clubs he's been linked with, and it's a pretty big sheet of paper. Brian Porteous, Kevin Nisbet, all these type of guys. I'm sure you'll be braced for either bids or at least seeing their names on back of tabloid papers and things like that over the sort of next 2 months.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely part of the planning for this year. So that our kind of sheet of players at the moment has got them colour coded. So there's some of them that you're expecting might come towards you and say, look, I need to move on to other things because I'm maybe not going to play as much, or because I just think it's time for me to go. And then there's others that are the assets essentially that you expect people to be interested in. And it's probably trying to react to any one of these situations happening at any one time. In my experience now, I don't even know what number of transfer window this is. I've had a fair few. I keep saying it, I had a full head of hair when I started, and now look at the statement, it's going the wrong direction altogether. But you whatever planning you can do, things will change, because I don't think we were sitting here a year ago thinking that Darryl Horgan was going to go to Wickham. He had a year left on his deal. He was in and about the team at that time he was starting, and it came out of nowhere for him, a good opportunity to go and earn more money and play in the English Championship, and they came towards us making a bid. So So that's always happens. It always happens every summer. And yeah, I mean, it would be wrong for us not to consider that teams will be interested in these players because they've done well for us. And absolutely, they'll be on people's radar potentially to move. But it's incumbent on us to try and prepare as best we can. And hopefully everything aligns that the player that we want to bring in is available, affordable, wants to come, and is there at the time where inevitably one or two over the course of the next period of time might move. So that's the challenging recruitment, is like getting all the ducks lined up in a row and having them all in place at the time you need them to be.
It seems like this season is like last season, because it was Jack's first summer and things like that. It was trying to make his squad, if you will. But this season, because you have got the good sort of 23, 24 that you would like there next season, it's going to just be a case of quality over quantity. It's not going to be like buying 10, 11 players this summer for you guys, I wouldn't assume.
No, I don't think so. I mean, at the moment, obviously Dan Mackay was a good one that we got done early. So that adds to the kind of profile that we've been trying to bring in over the last period of time. Which is good, but there's probably another 2 or 3 areas that we would like to strengthen out the starting team, and then that's obviously preparing for some of the movement that inevitably is going to happen over the course of the summer as well. So, but as things stand at the minute, I think we're in a good place. If the league started tomorrow, we would put a competitive team on the pitch, and that's without really doing much else from last season, because the core of the squad's in place. We had good control over contracts, and as I say, we can field a competitive team as things stand, but undoubtedly we want to try and improve it, and that's what we're kind of working on at the moment to try and do that.
One thing I did want to ask about sort of Josh Doyle-Porteous. Now, I have no idea. This might just be me, but it might be something I've noticed it with Jamie Gullen as well and a couple of other youth academy guys, is that they all speak incredibly well in the pressers.
Yeah.
Usually young people, I can imagine it's quite daunting to come into a room with 10 and 11 broadcasters and things like that and speak, but those two in particular, and the guys coming through the academy at Hibs, all speak really, really well. Is that something you work on? Because it seems too much of a coincidence that even guys who have left the club, they all speak like that, and it freaks me out a wee bit.
No, it just must be an East Coast thing, I must admit. So, coming from the West myself, I don't know whether that's just something that gets bred into them in that part of the world. But no, I think, joking aside, they're all really mature boys. I mean, it's not something that we've done formally, but it's something I'd like to do. We do have a really good education program that all these guys have been involved in. So there's a guy, Sean McParland, that runs that. And again, there's a kind of formal part of the education process for young players at that age that they get involved in, but he also does kind of add-on pieces to that. So a lot of it is about confidence, and he will ask them to stand up and present in front of their peers and things like that. But we haven't done quite as much probably formal media training work as maybe we could do. And it's interesting you talk about your Youth Football Scotland days, because I would love to, whether it's that organisation or something similar, but get them involved in our academy. So exactly right, so young players get used to speaking after a game, camera in their face, microphone, speaking to a group of people and that type of thing, because it is important. It's a great life skill. But you're right, we are lucky. All of these guys just speak incredibly well, and they're really mature boys, which is probably why they've managed to get to the level that they have in the game, because they're so level-headed and mature, and good guys. And it's nice. It's a nice reflection on the club, for sure.
I put Porteous after he won the 2018 Youth Cup final. I interviewed him. It was Youth Football Scotland stuff. I interviewed him, and even then, he was giving it the full. You obviously hear him. You know what Hampden's like. You can hear pretty much everyone from inside the sort of top and things like that. Big tunes on and things like that, and he comes out and gives the most PR scripted interview I think I've ever. There's definitely a few in that squad, and I'm assuming guys under the surface as well that can sort of step into sort of his mould as leaders of the academy, if you will.
Yeah, no, for sure. But there's also a couple in the other way. So if you want one of a couple of guys that give you something different, just give us a shout. We can find them quite easily for you.
That's fine. Well, just don't media train them at all.
That was a Jason Cummings-esque type interviews, wasn't it, back in the day? So that's maybe not a great place to start.
See when he done his Dundee intro, oh my god, it's like he's so good. We miss characters like that. I think I'm not saying like Ryan Porteous is going to come in and swing for chandeliers and things like that during his next interview, but definitely we can't be bothered in this media industry with scripted characters like
No, not at all. No, it's funny. I mean, obviously Martin Boyle's a guy that keeps the dressing room going at the minute, but I think back to that dressing room, you had McGinn and Henderson used to be in and about it, a wee bit quieter, right enough, but still in and about all the nonsense for the guys and Cummings. But they were, when they trained, absolutely brilliant, but just a great environment off the park as well. And the kind of Grado wrestling footage, I don't think I'll live long in the memory of that experience of Jason Cummings wandering out in his pants wrestling Grado in the canteen. Brilliant.
Good stuff. But one thing for us, sort of wrap this up, one of the things being bandied about is this transfer room stuff. What is it called? Transfer speed dating, I think they call it, and with loads of clubs around I think Mull and Rangers or a couple of clubs maybe involved in it last week, and I know you've been sort of a champion of it previously, and I don't know if you were in the meetings earlier this month or not, but you sort of just explain for anyone that doesn't know what that is, what it's about, and sort of what that entails.
No, it's a clever idea actually. It's probably like an unofficial transfer list. So every club who accesses it, so there's now a fee that you pay. You download an app, all your squad are on there, and you can make players available for loan or transfer. So it means that, and it's happened, pretty recently. So we get a name in, and we're not quite sure whether the player's available or not. You can type his name in. Luckily, his club's on Transfer Room, and very quickly you can see whether they think he's a player that they might consider a transfer for or a loan. You can go as far sometimes just putting in the value of the players as well. So again, really quick and easy to see, what sort of price that clubs might consider for players. Otherwise, you just ask them to make contact with you. But even at that, you can do it for friendly games as well. So it's just essentially a site that connects clubs with clubs. They do a forum twice a year now where you can go and meet people, and there has been people that we've met and done business with since, or people that you meet at the time because you really want to do business with them there and then. So in terms of a networking tool, it's brilliant. In terms of a tool that allows you, quick and easy access to getting answers, it's really good because, and again, I would never, I think part of their kind of USP was to try and maybe move agents out or to the side of the conversation. But I've always thought, agents will always be in the conversation at some point. But with this one, it's actually pretty good to to get to a club pretty quickly and hopefully get you quick and easy answers on whether you can move forward with players. So as you see, I've championed the software and I still use it pretty regularly to this day. So it's helped us to move forward on a couple of players over the years.
Yeah, I can imagine. Who was it? Sleifka was one that was done through it, or was started through it. So
that's right. Yeah.
So it's not like it's just one of these things you go and look at players in the shop window, and I'm not looking. I'm not buying. I'm just looking.
I know. Well, listen, there is a wee bit. I mean, they've added some really pretty interesting kind of bits to it, so you can compare players, from the data that they use, and there's a wee bit there where you can consider somebody's market value and things. So there is quite interesting bits. For the English clubs, there's also a governing body endorsement calculator, so to see whether they would get a work permit to come in. So there's some pretty good bits that they've added to it as well. But you're right. If you're ever bored, it's interesting to do a bit of window shopping and see who you can't afford as much as who you can.
Good stuff. I look forward to the pre-season training camp at the new camp and things like that in the next couple of years.
Something like that.
But just to wrap this up then, objectives for the season. I can imagine the short term will be getting or entering talks with the likes of Jackson Irvine, who are still kind of futures undecided, and then after that, sort of looking to retain third and pushing Europe.
Yeah, I think the first objective must be to continue to compete in Europe, because that's the first competitive games that we've got. So getting through as many rounds as we can. You've mentioned it, the group stages is a significant change and dynamic for us as a club. So it would be great if we could get through to that level. And then make sure that Hibs still competes at the top end of the league. It's something the club hasn't done consecutively often enough over the last 40, 50 years. So that's something that we've got a big challenge to try and do. And again, can we go a stage further clubs? I think that's that those would be the key targets for on-field success this year, and continue to sort of, on a personal level, continue to sort of build and grow the academy back to what it was before, and hopefully help them utilise some of these strategic partnerships to develop some younger players as well would be really positive.